Okay. Well, hello everybody. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Elio Gutierrez, or Elio Gutierrez, whatever's easiest for you. I actually am a UC Davis alumni. Graduated in 2009, and now I work for the UC Davis School of Medicine. But I guess I could actually go on to say that I now work for 5 UC schools of medicine. And the reason for that is because I coordinate the UC Post-Bac Consortium. Tried to say that 3 times fast. So, has anybody here, out of curiosity, heard of the UC Post-Bac Consortium? Show of hands. All right, a good number of you, maybe half. How about just Post-Bac in general? What is it? Who's the first? This is the first time you've heard about a Post-Bac program. Just curious. Okay, 1. Be honest. It's okay. Yeah. Okay. There you are. That's good. That's what the point of this is. So I'm really excited to have you here. The point of today is to know what a post-bac is, and then be able to really understand what are the factors, what are the elements to a post-bac program that you need to consider when you're really going after a post-bac, considering actually applying for one, because all of them are very different, and it's just really important to understand the language and just understand what is out there before you just make before you make a choice, because it's costly and because it's more time. Okay, so at any point, if you are interested in have any questions, have a comment to say, that's fine. Just raise your hand and I'll call on you and we'll go from there. All right, so what is a post-baccalaureate program? So I think I wanted to start off by just saying that yes, it is an opportunity, yet another opportunity for you to get to your goal. So the post-bac programs that I'm going to talk about, the ones that I coordinate, are specifically for students that are interested in pursuing medical school. But there are post-bac programs for other careers, not just medical school. So out of curiosity, is everyone pre-med? Is everyone intending to go to medical school? Show of hands. Okay, who's not? Dentistry, pharmacy, PA, anything? Okay, interesting. All right, well, great. So this will be very relevant for a lot of you because it's about pre-medical programs. But in short, there are 2 types of post-bac programs. They define them by academic enhancers and career changers. So academic enhancers are post-bac programs that are specifically kind of what they sound like. They are focusing on your academics and improving upon them. So students that are interested in raising their GPA, students that are interested usually in doing better in the assessment, the MCAT portion, will consider academic enhancers. The career changer post-bac programs are for those of you that might have not taken the pre-med courses. Okay, so those are literally, you woke up one day, which happens a lot more than you might think, and you decided medicine is what I want to do. Okay, so there is an opportunity for you to do that. So you can go to a career changer post-bac, and what those do standardly is that they allow you to take the pre-medical courses so that you can qualify to then apply to medical school or be more prepared to apply to medical school. Questions about the 2 differences? Okay. So who needs a post-bac program? I felt it's very important to put this slide up or ask this question because more and more as I've been going out and outreaching to students and talking about post-bac programs, I started seeing that the population that is more intrigued by post-bac programs are people in their 1st and 2nd year. And I started raising a red flag for me. Any questions as to, or any idea as to why it's a little alarming for those of you that are in 1st and 2nd year to be considering post-bacs? In the back.
You still have time to build your GPA.
Yes! Simple. These are not hard questions. Feel free. Even if it's wrong, I won't tell you it's wrong. It's probably somewhere in between. But still, yes, exactly. So if you're a freshman and a sophomore and you're already considering a post-bac, that tells me something, right? It doesn't tell me exactly who you are. It doesn't tell me what your academic, perseverance will be necessarily, but it does start making me wonder what it is that your dedication lies in. Like, what is it that you are prioritizing, and what is it that you really want from your schooling as an undergrad? And that's very important, right? So the answer is it's not for everyone, and not everybody should go to a post-bac program. In fact, I love to say that post-bacs are plan B. What is plan A? This is a question that you can answer. What is plan A? If plan B is post-bac, plan A is?
4-year undergrad and then medical school.
Yes! Why would you extend more schooling and potentially have to spend a lot more money when you can just do it right after school and not have to take an additional time and expend, more resources? So post-bac should be always a plan B. Is that clear? It's really important here. Okay. So just another thing, in case you're wondering or you don't know who to talk to in terms of post-bac programs. Oh, wait, what?
Your computer should.
I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What I was just trying to say is who you should talk to. I put a list there, right? So people that I always recommend my students to go to the source, right? So for people that are considering medical school and don't feel like they're qualified or they might not meet the standard, go to the source. And what that source is the medical school. And the reason why is because the medical school that you're interested in knows what they admit. Okay, so if they are the ones that are making decisions or helping, influence the decisions, so who better to ask than the actual medical schools themselves? Now they sometimes they can be difficult to get a hold of. Sometimes they, might ask you to call different people, but I insist that if it's possible to get the answers from the medical school themselves, specifically pre-health advisors or the admissions office, then it's a good idea to reach out to them because they would know. Another good resource then are also the pre-med advisors and then of course post-bac representatives, right? But you just have to make sure that no matter what, you double check and triple check because information is changing constantly. Admissions right now, the MCAT is changing, it's changed, right? So things change and it is literally, I think, impossible for one person assigned to one college to really know what every admissions office is asking for. So it's really up to you as an individual to take initiative and to go and seek that information for yourself. That will do you very well. Okay? Any questions about why post-bac is not for everybody? Okay. All right. So you might have heard about the differences between what a formal post-bac is and an informal post-bac is. And if you didn't, now you're hearing it. There are two distinctions. An informal post-bac is something that everybody can do. In fact, if you're currently considering a post-bac for whatever reason, you do not have to apply to a formal post-bac program like the one that I coordinate. In fact, the reason post-bacs were born was because people still wanted to go to medical school and they couldn't go right off the bat from graduation, so they literally went and created post-bacs for themselves. They went to a 4-year or some other school to take additional classes and improve in their GPA, show the medical schools that they're capable of actually, competing with students that are in medical school and can do well, and that's how post-bacs actually came about. So you can do your own informal post-bac. And what that means is you literally go and you apply to a 4-year. We recommend a 4-year so you can stay on the same academic rigor that they consider, in terms of the level. And then you can apply. You can take multiple courses, boost your GPA up, and just see how that fares. But then there's the formal post-bacs, which are the ones that you probably have heard of, that have the application process and that have a system. And the only difference between that is that you're still taking, at least for academic enhancement or even career changes, you're still taking the classes that you need to better yourself. But the difference is the resources that are offered to you in a formal post-bac may not be the same thing that you're able to obtain in an informal post-bac, at least that they're not just directly given to you. And that's key. Because I think that resources are great, but you can seek your own resources as well as individuals. And I kind of just want to drive that kind of home. What I'm saying is that if for some reason a formal post-bac does not accept you, that is not the end of the road. You can create your own path. In fact, many people have and have been very successful. Okay? Any questions? Okay. So just for reference. Oh, yes.
So you mentioned resources. What kind of resources are you talking about?
I'll get there, but it tends to be that most students in a formal post-bac are in a cohort, so they work together, they create their own kind of family and network, and then oftentimes they take coursework together, right? And they have additional resources So learning skills specifically, identifying what the individual's best style of learning and most efficient way of being able to be successful. Counseling and psychological services are often also at hand. What if the student has a learning disability? That type of thing is addressed before they even start at most post-bac programs, which really set up a student for success. But that doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to do that yourself in an informal post-bac, right? It just might not be as readily available, so you'd have to find those resources. Another thing is the MCAT prep component. So formal post-bacs have that usually built in because they know that that's a measure that you need to meet in order to be able to be in medical school. So they incorporate that, right, as part of the package. They also expose you to different things. So for example, some post-bacs have a focus on underserved populations, and maybe that's what your interest is. So what you'll see is that they'll build in course, seminars, clinical opportunities, research opportunities that directly work with the area of focus that you're interested in. That would be another example of things that they can provide. But not necessarily what you can't create yourself, right? But we have those connections already made, so of course it's easy, right? And we're part of a university, so we can utilize that. We're part of the School of Medicine, we can utilize that. So things come a little easier, but it doesn't mean you can't do it yourself.
Another question.
Yes?
So if you take the MCAT already and you don't get a school you like, do you still, and you get into a formal post-bac, are you still in the MCAT course or still not?
So the question's just about MCAT. Did everybody hear? Is everybody able to hear the questions? Okay. Obviously he's in the back. But basically, it depends on the program. It does. Most of them will take your MCAT scores that you've done previously into consideration, right? Because they want to know what they need to work with. So if indeed they believe that the MCAT, that score that you received is low, you will for sure be in that Kaplan component or that Princeton component or whatever their component of MCAT prep is. However, and you'll learn a little later, there are exceptions to that, where maybe you don't need to retake that because you have a competitive score. Okay. All right, so just for reference, we are formal academic enhancers. The UC Post-Bac, that's what we are. So for those of you that are interested in career-changing paths, we would not be the program for you. Okay, and because I'm here to talk as a representative of the UC Post-Bac Consortium, I'm very aware that this might not be the program for you, but understand that the foundation of the program and the information is very similar across the board to what post-bacs do. So I still think that the information hopefully will be relevant for you. Okay, so our mission is to create more doctors that are interested in working in areas with physician shortages throughout the state of California. And we do that by preparing them and by assisting them into getting into medical school. And I'm proud to say that we're very good at it. As you can see, our focus is underserved populations. So what that means for you all is that if you have demonstrated passions, if you work at student-run clinics, if you actually don't even work at clinics, but you work in bridging gaps between communities that don't have access to them, that means that you are in line with our mission. It doesn't even have to be clinical, okay? But we are looking for that passion. And so when students apply to our program, we assess that by allowing them to present to us what it is that they've done in their undergraduate careers, okay? So that becomes a really fundamental aspect of what we evaluate as in terms of you and whether or not you're a good fit for our program. Other post-bacs don't have that very specific focus. Okay, that's important to know. An example of that is UC San Diego, who used to be part of the consortium but no longer is. They have the ability to take a lot more students, and they don't have that super focus anymore, which is fine. It actually assists in getting more and more people to medical school who actually probably still have that focus anyway because they still think it's part of the consortium. But whatever. So that's just an example though. There are other post-bacs out there that have different focuses. We're at 5 UCs, Davis, LA, Irvine, Riverside, and San Francisco. Okay? And The way that you apply to our programs is, one, it's free, but it's an online application. Okay, and you do pretty much what you did for the UC, where you check mark what schools you want your application considered by, and then you submit one set of papers, one set of letters of rec, and so on and so forth, and we deal with the rest. Okay, and we just make sure that they consider you, and they will go on with their process to evaluate as to whether or not you fit for them. The application opened this year on the 2nd. It'll likely stay the same next year. We tend to open at the beginning of January, and the deadlines tend to be the earliest in mid-March, the latest in May. So you just have to pay very close attention to what the deadlines are for each school. Questions about deadlines, application? Okay. Another thing to know is that oh yes.
So, the applicant, is every applicant to the Post-Bac program?
Yeah, that's where I was going. Thank you. Yeah. So we define first-time applicants and reapplicants very specific to our our lingo. So the way that it is a first-time applicant is a first-time applicant, or is a person that's never applied to medical school. A reapplicant is a person that applied to medical school and was unsuccessful. Okay. So now that you said that, you will notice that UCLA here is an exception. UCLA only takes reapplicants, meaning that you would have had to apply to medical school and been unsuccessful to be considered for their cohort. All the rest of them take both. In the back. Oh, yep. Yes?
Is there a star? There's a star next to UCSF. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah. So it's actually supposed to incorporate the whole bullet. But basically, I wanted to make sure that you understood the difference between full-time applicant and reapplicants. But yeah, UCLA is not included in the first-time applicant deadlines on purpose. Yes. Did you have a question? You select whichever ones you want. You just check mark which schools you want to be considered for. Good question. Every school evaluates you independently. They have their own process, their own people, and so if you get accepted into one, you can get accepted into the others, and then the decision lies on you, where you want to go. And we'll fight for you sometimes. Okay. Other questions? Yes.
The program.
1 year. So all 5 programs are 1 year.
So, applicant deadline is passed for this year.
Correct. So we are done receiving applications for this year. We will open our new application process next January for people that want to start that summer. So people that applied this year start this summer, or are starting literally, they started yesterday. Yes?
How many of your students go straight through as in graduate in June and start that summer versus taking a gap year between graduating and starting Post-Bac?
So interestingly enough, we have quite a diverse population when it comes to how long they've been out. In fact, more and more we're seeing students that go and take a gap year and then come back and do a post-bac. What happens with medical school admissions, and I'm sure Joanne might have already talked to you about this, is that when you go and you take time off and gain the experience that you do, you become a whole different type of applicant, which is really helpful. However, in terms of academics, when you start reaching a certain point where it's been a certain amount of time, tends to be about 5 years from schooling, then they start asking whether or not you're confident enough to do it the same way in school as you did before. So sometimes people start taking post-bacs for that reason, but that's why it's so important for you to talk to the schools of medicine, because they might not need you to do a post-bac. They might actually still consider what you've done previously, even if it was 5, 6 years ago, as something that is reflective of what you can do, and they can admit you right off the bat. So again, it comes back to making sure you check before you just do. But sometimes they do. Sometimes they want to see more recent work, and that's when students start applying to post-bac. So literally, we have parents that are in our post-bac. We have people that literally range all over in terms of age, backgrounds, everything you can think of, and that's on purpose as well, because the truth is about California and about just the U.S. in general is that our healthcare needs to be our healthcare workers need to be as diverse as our population, right? And we're slowly becoming more and more aware of the importance for that, and you guys are an exciting time because you guys get to see that change from what it was to what it will be. Any other questions? Yes.
Question with postdocs in general, what types of classes should the academic potential students take? I've heard two stories. I've talked to Ed at the beginning, he's like take immunology, hematology, microbiology, and I've heard other students say, yeah, I'm just gonna take classes that I can get grades, like good grades, for division classes. So
Right.
this could be like plant bias.
So your question is just what courses. Let me get into that a little later because we are going to cover that as well. But the reality of it is that you want courses that are going to affect your science GPA, that are actually going to impact it, and that you need to be very careful about what you choose, because if you choose something in the gray area, you know, maybe a social science that has some science in it, it might not actually affect your GPA. Right, and so we look at science GPAs as medical schools, a lot of us, and so it's just important to be careful about what that is. And so Ed's examples are what I would follow, because he, in terms of UC Davis specifically, because that's what he advises for, right? But if you were to talk to an advisor at UCSF, you might find that they might tell you something different. Yes, in fact?
Just want to ask about the size of the class.
We'll get there. We will, yes.
Is Post-Bac programs also good for your students to get recommendations for medical school?
Yes, definitely. That's another a good part about doing a post-bac, a formal post-bac as well, is you more routinely come across people that, especially with post-bacs that are associated to medical schools, come across individuals that are able to write strong recommendations because they understand what the recommendations need to be, right, when you go and you apply to the medical schools. I'm going to take maybe two more questions. Yes?
Do you need a bachelor's to apply, or can you apply while you're a senior and then start that summer?
A good question. Do you need a bachelor's? Yes, for most programs, but you can apply and your acceptance will be held, at least for our consortium, will be held contingent on the fact that you present a degree before you start. So people have applied their fourth year, even though they don't have a diploma yet, but if they don't have the degree by spring, then their seat will be given to someone else. One more.
Oh, you were saying that it was started yesterday, right? Or today.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what like the MCAT track for?
Yes. Yes. So students that started yesterday here on the Davis campus started their MCAT component, not courses. All right. Okay, we're going to keep going just in the interest of time and getting through. Eligibility criteria for the post-bac programs. Okay. We asked for a California residency. All right, and notice that we don't throw the word legal in there, and that's because that's not a factor for us. Okay? Undergraduate degree from an accredited U.S. institution is required in order to enroll, or actually start the post-bac. You need to be educationally or socioeconomically disadvantaged, and you need a minimum science GPA of a 2.7. Okay? When you apply, we ask you to tell us what your disadvantage background is. Okay? And we ask you to tell us for a reason. I do not know what it means to be disadvantaged for every individual person. The word disadvantage is broad, and your experiences can be very different from your experiences, right? So it's key just to understand that we are receptive to what it is that your story is. Yes?
If a student has, let's say, a 2.5 science GPA, would you advise that person to go and take science classes maybe at a community college to get up to the 2.7 to be eligible for a formal post-bac?
If you have a 2.5, I would recommend that you take coursework and that you bring your GPA up before you apply. And the reason why is because that significantly improves your chances of getting into our post-bac. We need to be realistic about what we can do with you in 1 year. We only have you for 1 year. right? And we want you to get into medical school by the time you get out of our program. We don't want you to have to do more things after you're done with our program to get into medical school. So please know that that GPA is there for a reason. Have we had a student go in that's under a 2.7? Yes. Is it common? No. Yes.
Let's say a student has like several C's and a lot of the intro, like biochem, OChem. If they went and did community college to kind of boost them up to a 2.7, would it be okay if they took those intro level classes over to get a stronger foundation in those so that when they went to post-bac they could take some upper division?
Okay. Repeating courses, and this is what our mentality is as schools of medicine in California. Okay, so that's important. It's important to know because you're not just going to be applying to California schools. Repeating courses, in our opinion, is not worth the time. And the reason why is because when you apply to our schools, we're going to take your first time you took it grade, the second time you took the grade, and the third if you took it a third time. And we're going to average those out. What is more impressive to us is that you take an upper division course in a similar subject and excel. Because that shows us that you obviously have the competency to do that coursework, but in a more complex level. That's what we want. You're not, the prereqs are indicative of what you're able to do in sciences, yes. But upper division sciences are the academic rigor that is most comparable to what you're going to be doing in medical school. And in fact, even it's more challenging than that, right? So what you want to do is you want to invest your time, in, at least for our purposes, in doing upper division science courses that you've never taken. And that's what you will do, in fact, when you enroll in our post-bacs. You will not be repeating courses. The only reason you would repeat a course is because you felt so passionate that you couldn't succeed without the information in that course, that we allow you to retake that course just simply because you need that in order to be successful in upper division. But that rarely happens. Yes? Oh, actually, really quickly, and I do also want to say one more thing. When people ask me, can I retake courses at a community college, I say no. And the reason why is for what I just said. We want upper division courses. We want to see how you fare in those. Because that's what you're taking your junior and senior and super senior year, right? Okay. So we want to see how you fare in those. And if you're boosting your GPA at that quality, then we know that when you're in our program, it's going to be less challenging for you. It'll still be a challenge, and we'll help you through that. But we need to know that you're able to do that.
Let's say you did really poorly on your lower division classes, but you did really well on your upper divs, then is there a reason to take a post-bac?
Yeah, exactly. And this is why you need to talk to your medical schools. Precisely the reason why. We love, as a UC, you probably already have heard this multiple times, probably, this whole, like, upward trend. You guys understand what I mean by that? You know, you start shaky and then you figure it out is what happens, right? You figure it out and you're able to do it. That's what you're doing in a post-bac. This is why post-bacs are successful in getting their students in. Our post-bacs don't hold less than a 3.5 GPA the whole year that they're here. And they're taking a full load of upper division science courses. What that's showing is a complete difference in what they did in their undergrad to what they're doing in 1 year. That is the reason. It's not that your GPA dramatically changes, because if you go and sit there and check how much your GPA is going to really change if you were to get A's in a whole year of coursework, that change is not very drastic because you've already taken a lot of courses. It's really hard to get that GPA to really get up there, right? So it's the reason that they're accepting more and more post-bacs is because what they're realizing is that something has changed. In the way, yeah? Mm-hmm.
So what happens if you go to community college and transfer to Davis, pretend that your science GPA is like 2.5? Do they mix in community college science GPA, which is a 3.2, with like a 2.5?
We take it all. We do take it all to consider what your GPA is, science GPA is. Whatever you did in community college, everything, all your undergrad. Same for medical school. Yes?
So are you taking these upper division classes with undergraduates? Because I have never really seen any
They're incognito. They're like chameleons. You don't even know they're there. Yeah, but they are. They're here. In fact, no, I'm just kidding. They're not. I planted them. No, but yes, they are. They're taking them here. The only exceptions to that right now are UC San Francisco. They don't have an undergraduate campus. They use UC Berkeley Extension. That's the majority of where their students go. And UCLA actually is in collaboration with CSUs. So they tend to go into CSU systems or the LA or the UCLA extension. Okay, 2 more questions. I know you've been there for a while, and then you.
Yeah, about students enrolled in this program, are they eligible for financial aid?
Yeah, so yes, but there's a difference in the type of financial aid that you get as an undergrad to what you get as a graduate or postgraduate or post-baccalaureate person, and it's very different. In fact, you see a lot less grants. In some incidents, some grants may trail over, but that's actually very rare. So what you see is a lot more loans. Okay, we are combating as best as we can, trying to find ways of making it more realistic and economical for our students. But it's not something that we've been able to overcome. Some of us have scholarships. Some of us are able to contribute, but not all of us. In fact, that's probably the biggest weakness that we have as UC Davis Post-Bac program. We have the less money out of the 5 to be able to contribute to our program, our students. So we see a lot of them end up taking loans, and sometimes even personal loans, which are different. So good question, and a very realistic and a good thing that you need to consider. This is why freshmen and sophomores should not be considering those rounds. And you had the last one.
Oh, and then so if you get accepted to the post-bac, then if you want to take a class, let's say for people that do MCAT, then if you get like not like B and F, but like C or B, is it possible to take those classes, or if you get like a valid grade?
So we're not going to let you retake courses.
Okay.
We're not going to let you retake courses. Okay? It's very rare if we do. Okay? Think about it this way. What happens if you retake the same course and you do worse? Or the same? What do you think a medical school is going to say?
Can't handle it.
Well, no, not necessarily, but, well, that's interesting. He retook the course and got the same grade, or worse. We just don't want you in that predicament in general. We just don't want to risk it. And you don't either. This is plan B, right? You don't want to have to try to do plan C. Okay, one more.
Is there a benefit to doing a postbac program? Let's say you're a graduating senior going into a postbac program versus staying fifth year and taking more abbreviation.
So the answer to that, good question, and stay if you can. We're getting more and more strict on what the amount of time that we allow our students to be here. That's the reality. But if you can stay here, the benefit is your financial aid. Oh my gosh, that's the biggest one. The other is that it's very likely that you have other courses that you have not taken that you can do here already still. So I would advise a student that can still extend their time at any place to do so, just economically speaking. Okay? All right, I'm going to keep going. All right, so more eligibility, obviously, because we are an academic enhancer, we expect that your pre-med requirements are done. You have taken all of them, and that is, and I'm just going to give it for our purposes, it's the whole year in chemistry, general chemistry, whole year organic chemistry, whole year bio, whole year physics. Okay? If you have math, good. Okay? In terms of MCAT, you don't need to have an MCAT. If you have an MCAT, we'll ask you about it. Average MCAT score, just for your reference, was an 18 2 years ago. I have not figured out what it was for this application period yet. A demonstrated passion for healthcare and the medically underserved for our missions purposes. And then I just wanted to put this here that it's not universal. Our requirements are not the same for everybody else in terms of outside of the consortium. All right. We talked about first time versus reapplicants. How we decide resident of California is the same way that the UC system defines resident of California. So they ask you a couple of questions in terms of where you've been, what your parents do, where they work, and then they decide whether or not you're a California resident. The application. So you must have an online application submitted before, preferably, the deadline, and that not on the deadline. After the deadline, you won't be able to. 3 letters of recommendation, and only 3, and a minimum of 3. Okay? So it must be a letter from a science professor, and this is a person whose class you've actually taken. So no research professor, no whatnot. If they're a dual professor, great. But we want someone that can tell us about how you do in the classroom setting. Okay? The next is a community service experience, whatever that is. And then lastly, it can be an employer, or a lot of students are starting to do a second faculty member. But the third one is whatever you want it to be. Okay? We need your official transcripts from all US schools, no exception. I don't care if it's on the transcript that you've ended in. I need your community college transcripts. I need I need that one summer you did in high school. I need them all. And they need to be official. And then the AMCAS or AA COMAS are the actual applications to DO school and to the regular MD school, right? So we just need a copy of your actual application. And then any formal assessment scores that you've taken. If you've taken the MCAT, we want to know what that is. If you never took the MCAT, then we want to see what your ACTs or your SATs look like. Yes, even though they're that old. And if you never took them because you came through the community college route, that's fine. We'll let you go. It's freebie. But otherwise, we want to see it. Questions? Yes. Yeah, so the only reason that we would want the transcripts from overseas are website, and you'll have this. They're going to send it to you, so you don't have to worry about writing this down right now. And then that last one is a cool link that I stole from Steer Careers, who has more post-bacs that actually are not just pre-med, but are interdisciplinary. So I thought I'd throw that in there as well, for those of you that might be interested in other programs. Now, question in the back.
Does it matter where exactly you do your postdoc at versus if you see Cal State? Because I noticed that you said that some of the UCLA students actually go to Cal State campus.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you can afford one over the other, does it matter where you go?
Yeah. So for more and more as postbacs have become like a established pathway that people are recognizing, and that's what my job is to really go out there in the world and talk about what it is that postbac students are actually doing and how successful they actually are being. More and more medical schools are becoming educated on the fact that postbac students are a resource that they can have, not only in terms of diversity for their medical schools, but also our postbacs are all graduating at the same rate as any medical student that was in there just straight off undergraduate campuses. So more and more people are becoming aware that postbacs are an option. So that in case you go and you talk to someone that has a negative opinion about a postbac, know that that's out there. That there are people that still don't necessarily understand the relevance of a postbac. Okay? But in terms of the people that do, it is not important where you go. What's important is what the difference is between your undergraduate year and your postbac year. If there's a significant increase in there, the only thing that's relevant is that it's at a 4-year, right? Because again, as much as there's people that don't agree with a postbac or that don't understand it yet, there are people that still believe that the academic rigor at a community college is not what it is at a 4-year, and that think that a 4-year is more challenging. So in an effort to help our students, we still promote that if they can and they can afford to go to a 4-year versus a community college. Yes?
So I'm a little confused. So once you complete the post-bac program, do most of the students apply at the end and then they wait for a year, do something with that gap year, and then go to medical school?
Yeah, so usually it takes about 2 years at the beginning of their post-bac to actually get them to start medical school. So most of our students, what they will do is that they'll take the following year after they're done, that summer, to apply. And that's the year that they apply and go and interview, and then the idea is they get in by that 2-year mark. So that's usually what happens. Most students will then, during that year, not only just apply, but they'll also work, Well, they'll go to get some more experience, but that's a good question because what you're looking at is kind of a 2-year, even though the actual academic part of it is only 1. Yes?
Do any of the programs in the consortium guarantee interviews?
Yeah, so more and more we're moving in that route, but no. Well, yes and no. UCLA, for example, guarantees an interview. UC Riverside guarantees an interview. However, the rest of them don't. And more, I think as we continue to see the progress of our students, we're moving in the direction of doing more so of a, not just a guarantee interview, but if we're spending so much resources and, moving towards the idea of then, is it possible to start reserving spots? But at this point, we don't. So it's not a guarantee that you will go to a UC. It just so happens that a lot of them do. Yeah, I have. So, masters are an option, a very realistic option. The only difference, the only thing that I would recommend a student to take into consideration is that if they're concerned and the reason that they want to apply to a master's program is because their GPA, their science GPA is low, they need to be careful what masters they apply to, because if your master's program does not have a heavy science-based curriculum, then you are not showing the medical schools that you're able to handle scientific curriculum, right? So for those of students that tend to apply to masters in public health sometimes, that's a concern that's very valid that you should have, because sometimes those master's programs do not offer heavy science coursework. So you just need to be very careful. Is there a preference between one or the other? I personally, for the schools of medicine here at the UC system, don't believe that there is. However, I still think that it's more important that you decide that that master's program is actually relevant to you, that it's something that you want to do, that you're going to get something out of that, and if your goal is medical school, then to consider whether it's scientific or not. Yes, sir.
Two quick questions. UCLA and Charles Wu, are they different? And also, do they both guarantee interviews?
So there's 2. Yeah, they are different. Okay, and it's not Drew that's in the consortium. It's the other. So it's the other one that you have the guaranteed interview for. And then was there another part to that? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
If you're gonna study a 5th year, that's considered like competitive, like for Post-Bac, how many science classes do they usually take? Quarters they take per quarter? Be considered competitive and do well. Like,
good question. So they take a full load. So here at the quarter system, they take 4 classes usually, unless one of their classes is higher units. Sometimes they will take a third. They just take 3. But usually it's full load, which is what? Is it still 13 units? It was. 16. Yes, and they're all science classes. But we're strategic. Just know that too, okay? And we're strategic about it. If you have trouble in biochemistry, we're not going to let you sign up for biochemistry, biostatistics and something crazy. No, we're gonna figure out what's gonna work best. And that's the great thing about also being in a consortium where the group sizes, which I didn't talk about, I apologize, are small. That we're able to really tailor our program to the students' needs. So really quickly, the cohorts are small. Over the consortium, we have 65 seats total. Okay. This year we received 600 plus applications. And the process is you apply, you receive an interview, and then you receive an acceptance depending on whether that interview went well or it didn't go as well. So that is the reality of our Post-Bac consortium at the moment. The biggest consortium programs here at Davis, we seek 20. Back. You. Gentleman in the blue.
What is the tuition like? Can you break that down? Is it like, are we paying the tuition maybe?
Exactly. You are paying the undergraduate tuition, and then you're paying your own living expenses. So whatever you're paying right now is very similar to what you're going to be paying, unfortunately. But yes, that is what you're paying. undergraduate tuition to that campus. Yeah.
What's the real difference between like tuition and like fees? Are you paying for your school tuition?
Fees?
Like there's like 13,000 and there's like 11,000. There's like
So, and isn't that considered like living expenses and other things, or because in my understanding, tuition tends to be like 11 to 13,000, right? And then you have the bigger number that's composed of like living, food, and whatnot. So I would say
the campus fee too.
you would have whatever fees that you have currently. So you will still pay like our students are able to go to the gym, so you still pay the ARC fee. Is kind of the only example I can give you. I hope that helps. Oh, sorry. Yep.
So one question with that. If your tuition is covered during undergraduate,
Grants and whatnot.
when you're veterans older, does
Uh-huh.
that carry on to post-bac program?
Yeah, so that's the conversation that you and I should have. But yes, those of you that have other financial sources that assist with your schooling, it depends. It depends on whether or not that organization deems it as something that they're going to be willing to pay. We've had two examples. One of them got funded and one didn't. So, but it's an individual case basis so far. I haven't had a lot of that experience, so that's why maybe we should talk. Yes.
Let's say you work at like a medical field for like 2 years after you graduate, like as an EMT, and you said experience changes your what kind of applicant you are. How do they look at your experience more than your GPA if you have more experience after you graduate to apply for post-bac?
To apply for post-bac.
Yeah.
So not so I was trying to say that comment to applying to medical school specifically. But in terms of post-bac, what you do outside, yeah, we consider that. We consider that if you went out and had a family or whatnot, and you're working, what is it that you're doing? We do consider that information because it's a holistic approach again. We really want to know who you are, what you're passionate about. And I think are we running out of time?
Those who have to go tend to get up and go, and if you do you have a lot more questions? I mean, it's up to you.
Couple more. I'm fine to stay, but I don't want to hold you hostage. So I'm going to go in the back. There was another question. Was there? No? Yes, you.
What's your opinion on applying for post-bac and medical school
My gosh. Ambitious. Yeah. And we actually just had 2 people get into medical school. So it's possible. That's intense because think about it. You're going to have to not only be doing excellent in your courses, but you're going to have to be interviewing and doing secondary applications as opposed to not just the first ones. So that whole process is very time consuming. So more power to you if you're able to do it. We don't recommend it. We expect you to, and we help you apply, obviously, if you decide to do it concurrently. We're going to help you as best that we can. But how sane you are, I'm not sure, right? However, we will help you. We will be insane with you, but we don't know what's going to happen. We do recommend that it's something that you wait for afterwards so that you can really focus. One of the problems one of the reasons you're doing a post-bac is because you might have not put the emphasis on academics as you should have, or when you could have beforehand. You were doing all kinds of other things. We don't allow our students to work. We don't allow our students to do extracurricular activities that are organization part of the UC. They are academics, and that is the focus. Yes?
I have a question. If you do SMP, is that also done with science GPA, or is it in a separate master category?
Actually, I'm not familiar with what SMP is. Special Master's Program, sorry. Thanks. Abbreviations everywhere. So the cool thing about medical school admission is that when you apply, the way that it's broken down in your application is that it literally breaks it down by 3 different categories. Your major GPA, your science GPA, and then your overall GPA. And then it divides that by your freshman year, sophomore year, senior year, post-bac, master's programs. So people are actually able to see what you did specifically in that year. Every school is different, unfortunately, so I can't give you an answer as to what they specifically look at, but they do divide it.
Any other questions?
Yeah?
What's the average GPA you see for a year?
Last year, it was a 3.0 that applied. The people that got in are actually, I think, I don't know the answer.